I mean, if you've never DM'd, then my advice will still make you better than you would be without it. It's the best advice possible. What more do you want? You're welcome. Get some more people rolling in, probably. I don't have a D&D channel anymore. When I first started, people don't know this, I did a lot of D&D based videos. You might wonder, why am I wearing the medical mask? My cold sore is in the last stages of healing and has a gross scab. It is getting better, but it looks worse. And it's really, trust me, you're going to like this aesthetic better. You recently started with TTRPG, has been really fun. It is fun. TTRPGs are a great time. Big fan, big supporter, big believer. I got to get back to them soon. I'm going to run a Rogue Trader game for all you junkies out there, all you 40k fans. Holy shit, how do I sip my bevy? This is going to be tough. Welcome. Ugh. I've been baited by the D&D? Of course you have. D&D is great. Okay, actually, if I'm going to be frank, I'm a little bit of a D&D hater. We'll get into this as we go. Do I have housemates, or is it for the aesthetics? It's for aesthetics. I have a gross cold sore. It's really gross right now. It's in the final stages of healing, so it's disgusting looking. It's really bad. I don't want to... when it was just a little red patch in the healing process, I didn't feel bad for wearing it for showing it off in front of you guys. But now that it's a big, gross scab, as a seasoned DM yourself, the best piece of DMing advice you have is you can always learn from just about everything everywhere. That's actually part of the preamble. D&D or tabletop games, I'm going to be honest. I love tabletop games. I'm a D&D hater because it's taken over the entire circuit. And it's like, what, a 12, 13-year-old game now? It's outdated. It's not outdated, like, don't play it, but for it to be the entire tabletop market is actually just bad. Like, it's bad that it's most of what people play, because in my opinion, there's a better game for almost anything, unless what you want is the very basic game that is fairly adjustable with homebrew that everybody already knows how it works because nobody cares enough to learn. That's the only reason. Steal good DM advice, steal plotlines from One Piece. We aren't going... Should I get some cold sore patches? They peel the scab off. It's awful. No, I'm not one of those who dislike something for being popular. We'll get into why I think it's bad. I don't think D&D is a bad game. I think its market share is bad. I think it would be bad for literally any genre of game, of entertainment, to be dominated by one franchise. I think that's bad inherently for people's exposure to a genre of play. That's just normal. From the 3 sessions you played, you prefer Shadow Dark? I don't even know what that is. Let's do our preamble. Fuck. Shit, fuck. Hello and welcome to the Drawk Show. I'm Drawk. I'm going to try to be really expressive with my eyes because I have a bad cold sore. Hello, YouTube. Welcome, future people. Well, let me turn on the music. What is a tabletop RPG? It is a role-playing game played with friends in an imaginary space using some measure of rules to guide your storytelling. What is today about? It is advice for the getting started. This is everything leading up to session 1. Everything pre-session 1 I'm going to talk about. I want to give an important disclaimer. Good advice is painful. Only bad advice soothes your soul and makes you feel comforted. Good advice confronts where you might be lacking and your expectations and your interactions with what you do brutally. I like giving good advice. So if you feel attacked by something I say, I actually think that's fucking fine. And too many people who give advice are cowards and not willing to call out bad thought processes that hold us back as people. If you've come to my advice for living a better life streams, it's all good advice and it hurts. That's how I live. Don't hurt me, big meanie. I'm a big meanie because I want your life to be better. I want you to do everything you do better. Last night you started trying to make your own D&D campaign. Well, you're going to have a good time here. Let's get to it. Wait, is there more preamble? Do I have more preamble or is that it? Let me check my notes. Wouldn't the Warhammer... No. What he means is that Warhammer 40k dominates the entire tabletop war game space. The same way D&D dominates its entire space. I honestly think D&D's less dominant now, but used to be more dominant than even 40k. It goes in cycles. All right, let me take a look. Yeah, okay. Yeah, improvement is a destructive act. That's why advice is painful. Good advice is painful. There we go. Yeah, it's not quite the monolith anymore. I think everyone's going to learn something, whether or not you're an expert, you can learn. I learn from other DMs all the time, and I genuinely consider myself an expert. I have a background in writing. That's my degree. I've done a lot of improv, which is hugely essential. I was a theater kid. I've DM'd for like a decade at this point. More than a decade at this point, like a decade and a half. I have run 4 games, like long games to completion, which are, sorry, 5. Which, if you know anything about games, very few of them, because life gets in the way, make it that far. Soft healers make stinking wounds. Based expression, the Dutch? Wow. I'm on board, the Dutch. Potentially? Let go of the mask and the anxiety of immortalizing my cold sore? No, the mask is fine. You can see my eyes. That's the window to the soul. Mouth ain't nothing. See me in 30 seconds? If you are in ad hell, sorry. I'll wait until ads are done to actually start. So we'll do some more preamble. How long of campaigns? They vary. I think 2 years is the longest campaign I've wrapped up. Usually 1.5 years. Remove shirt instead. We're almost skinny enough for it. Don't worry. The issue I really have is, the weight loss is in an unattractive phase. We gotta wait. Also, I can't beef up because my arm's too fragile right now to put a lot of pressure on it. We gotta wait for ads to be over, everybody, and then we're gonna roll into proper. You prefer chubby, Drawk? I'm sorry, that ain't me. What inspired the stream? I don't know. I just got thinking about DMing advice. I've been watching more actual plays lately, and I've been thinking, I'm good at this. I know what's up. I should help people because a lot of people do like advice, and I think I'm a good communicator. So not only do I know a lot of this, but because I'm a very analytical person, I understand why what I do works and what my shortcomings and failures are. You've been running your current campaign weekly for almost 5 years? That's crazy. You'll call me out if I go shirtless skinny. I've told you that that's what I'm waiting for. Look, I think a lot of people look better chubby. I just don't think I'm one of them. I've been on record to say this. I've been on record. All right, let's get started. Number 1. Our first lesson, our first piece of advice. Is this advice transferable? Yes, it's not meant to be for D&D, actually. It's just people only know D&D, so I'm using their terminology. Suck it, motherfuckers. Number 1. Your husband's been watching DM advice videos lately. Maybe I'll have a thing or two to add. Make him watch the VOD. I'm great. Number 1. Define genre expectations. This is so much more important than people realize. Today's advice is all about the pre-play. It's about everything you're doing before you get started, and people underestimate the importance of this. You might say, what if I'm doing generic D&D? What the fuck does that mean at this point? That's not a genre. Let's talk about it, right? Is that a dungeon crawler? It could be. Is that a war story? Oftentimes, yes. Is this a political drama? It could be that. Fuck it, is it? I don't know, everyone's running wizard school now. Something that you should be... doesn't take into genre expectations limit stories? Fuck no. Who are you? What the fuck? No. Genre expectations are there for a goddamn reason. No. Horror is not part of standard D&D, and I refuse that. That's actually a great point to create a deviation. If you are including horror, you are not doing generic D&D at all. That is because the goals of horror and the goals of D&D are opposite. D&D, as a genre, as a game system, is... Oh yeah, we're talking about standard for now. Like, this is an explanation of generic D&D. You didn't get that? Fair. But I think this is a good, important point. D&D structurally is antithetical to horror. Horror is about helplessness, fear, panic, paranoia. D&D is about autonomy, power, flexibility, and progression. You get stronger over time. Horror is a destructive genre. It is not about autonomy or agency. It is about struggle. You really have an insane uphill battle. Curse of Strahd is one of the only good blends of D&D vibes and horror out there. And its entire setting is jury-rigged to make it work. Push novelty. No, Twitching Wanderer, you're insane. This is the problem with leftists, and I say this is the leftists. Leftists are obsessed with subversion. Genre expectations are there for a reason, whether you understand it or not. Let's talk about it. You want to not have the tropes of a dungeon crawler in a dungeon crawler, you're going to make a worse dungeon crawler. Now, Can you do fusion? Can you do elaboration? Can you expand upon it? Yes. But if you don't include things like traps, puzzles, difficult monsters, a sense of history, of discovery of an old thing long forgotten, you are failing to meet players' expectations when they do this. It's like if you don't have revolvers and shootouts in a Western, people are going to feel upset and cheated. Just because you shouldn't feel limited by genre doesn't mean you should not be aware of the genre expectations. The first thing you are doing when you are deciding to run a game is choosing the genre. Even in generic D&D, you should have a structure that is the baseline. And as you deviate from that expectation, it should only ever be with intention. You must understand. This is a golden rule that we're going to keep on stringing the whole time, okay? Ready for the golden rule? This is the most important rule in DMing. Oh, fuck, I did forget some preamble. This is the most important rule. Golden rule. That's not proper. That's golden rule. Give me a second. Press the wrong button. Only. Fuck, I need to press enter. Only break rules that you understand the full reason for. All right? Now, the golden rule is, we're talking about, this is the golden rule for the preamble, for the before the game. There are many D&D monsters with horror elements. Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's a horror setting. The game is not built for horror. It is structurally opposed. It is a game about autonomy, agency, progression, growth, and strength. Horror is a genre about weakness, loss, a lack of autonomy, fear, struggle. They are antithetical. They are opposed. It is not impossible to merge opposed things, but it is incredibly difficult. Scary things are not the same as horror. Shadow Dark is horror-like with dungeon crawling? Very possible. If you want to play D&D, it's because you expect these kinds of things. Like, for example, if you want PvP politics instead of pro-party fantasy, you just play vampire. Let's talk about this. I want to start with genre expectations. When you're starting your game, think about what kind of experiences you're looking to create. Do you want people to crawl through dungeons and fight monsters and do puzzles? Do you want a story about war, conflict, battle, loss, etc.? Do you want a political drama, wizard school, etc.? Or, if we go beyond generic D&D, yes, do you want horror? You might want horror. You might want shonen. Battle shonen is a fucking genre. Shonen's a publication, not a genre. It's also a genre. If you know what a genre describes, it's a genre. You might want slice of life. There are just systems that are better for horror, is true, but if you limit the level, yeah, it can work for horror. Figure out what the expectations of your genre are. If you want, someone name a genre, and I will talk about what I mean by that. Somebody give me a genre to elaborate on. Shadow Dark sounds like it. Call of Cthulhu is actually a great horror setting. Sci-fi, brilliant. So let's say you want to do sci-fi. Well, then we got to decide, are we doing... What the fuck? No, come on. Are we doing hard sci-fi? Are we doing soft sci-fi? Are we doing science fantasy? Or the subgenre, space opera? Fuck it. Yeah, mechas. We could do mecha. Or the various punks. Each of these comes with different genre expectations. All right? And you need to understand what your genre expectations are before you start. So if I am going to be doing hard science fiction, I need a setting that accommodates a lack of magic, where technology can take its place in the story. If I'm doing soft sci-fi, I can have some magic, but we rephrase it as a scientific feature. This is a species with empathetic, telepathic capabilities. Name one hard sci-fi. Mostly it's in novels. Star Trek gets close-ish, but it's soft sci-fi. I don't love hard sci-fi. I'm not a big fan. A lot of Isaac Asimov is hard sci-fi. Not all of it, but a lot of it. Basically, all works like fantasy. Yeah, basically all, but not all of it. A lot of Isaac Asimov is pretty hard sci-fi. If we're doing science fantasy, we need to have magical systems as well as technology. If it's a space opera, we need a grandiose, melodramatic feeling with more personal emotion. Mecha comes with its own shit. Each of the punks has its own shit. The Martian's pretty hard sci-fi, but it wouldn't make a great D&D setting. Each of these gives you different expectations, and you need to understand. Now, you might be like, why is this important? Great question. Well, if I choose to do horror, right? If I choose to do horror, my players are expecting struggle, a loss of autonomy, pain, loss, weakness. I should not pick D&D unless I'm willing to radically homebrew a lot of content to make it function. Let's say one of the best examples is the Game of Thrones lookalike that they did for Dimension 20, Crown of Candy. I love it. The NPCs try to kill people. Once someone's downed, they don't move on and let them get healed. They execute them. Normally, as a DM, you don't do that to your players, but if you're playing a darker genre, you do. That is a genre expectation of a dark political fantasy. The genre expectation is that your enemies will be brutal. But if you're doing something super heroic, the expectation is your villains will be flamboyant and showboaty. They will monologue. They will not be effective. They will be a threat. We're not talking about hard sci-fi. Each genre gives you different things your players will expect, and if you subvert these expectations without fully understanding what the consequences of doing so will be, you will weaken the experience. You should, if your perspective is, why should I be limited by genre? You don't understand genre well enough to break these rules. If your assumption is, I shouldn't be limited, actually, you should be more than anyone. The only people, in my opinion, who are ready to break genre expectation are the people who understand genre expectation so well that they are not telling themselves, why should I be limited like this? Imagine Dungeons & Dragons. That's a funny joke. Is getting a minimum number of players vital to better DMing? I think ideal party composition is 4 or 5 players. I think 3 can be okay. 6 and 7 are possible. But no, it's not a necessary skill. If you can get 3 people, it's fine. I think 4 is an ideal party comp, though. No, I said 6 or 7. I can understand your confusion. 6 or 7 is a very different statement to what you've typed. But yeah, that is absolutely something I believe. If you are questioning, why should I be limited by genre? You do not understand genre well enough to break its conventions. Limit yourselves to the conventions and expectations of your genre. Why? D&D, tabletop games, is a shared storytelling experience. Stories are set around expectation and delivery, motivations within an expected framework. If you defy those expectations, you are not managing to tell the story successfully. And that is what we're here to do as a DM, is be the facilitators of a group storytelling project. So if you recklessly break genre expectations, think about it. You're like a doctor, and your players have given you trust with the body of their story and heart. If you defy the expectations of your shared agreement of how you're going to act, you are betraying their trust. You need to understand that when you set up a genre, you are establishing an unwritten agreement of this is what I will be bringing to the table for our shared storytelling experience. If out of nowhere in a heroic fantasy game, you cause someone to get some gruesome injury that weakens them forever, you have betrayed their trust of genre that was agreed to implicitly by telling the story together. Your job is to service the shared storytelling experience, and a defiance of genre without a really well-intended, meaningful reason that plays into what you're doing in an important way is a betrayal of that trust. You've seen 8-person tables? I've seen them. It can work. It's just too much. All right. Does anyone have any questions on genre expectations, or are we ready to move on? This entire stream is all about Session 0, by the way, and pre-Session 0. Doesn't story... No! Story doesn't come before genre! The story is genre! Genre is the habitat of the story. The story is a beast. The genre is its terrain. You cannot have story without genre. They especially with D&D and tabletop games where our goal is to play inside of a narrative presentation. What's the best way to find the subgenres to go through? Your own understanding of media is the best place. I would stick to media you feel familiar with, because if you try to evoke and play with genre you're unfamiliar with, it won't go well. So I don't think it should need study. I think it should come from personal understanding and experience. If the table gets too big, we skip that for now. The genre is the type of events that happen within the story on their own. Yeah, basically. It's the momentum. It's the direction. It dictates what behaviors and actions are acceptable. If I am in a heroic fantasy game, I can do a melodramatic evil of a bunch of slaves being kidnapped by the villain. But, do you communicate? You communicate the genre. You say, this is the type of game we're doing. You never say, I'm doing generic D&D, because that, at this point, is split. You'd say, I'm doing a dungeon crawler game. Is that good with everyone? We're doing a pirate adventure. The way you communicate isn't by saying, hey, these are the genre expectations. You just say, this is the type of story we're telling. Read the mess of your marriage. Are we narrowing? Okay. No. Non-story games also have genre. Dungeon crawler is a genre. And in my opinion, if you are playing D&D with no story, what the fuck are you doing? Play Warhammer. Go play a war game. You don't need... It's a role-playing game. Even in a dungeon crawler where you're in a mega dungeon, the entire story and character should matter. If you believe that your characters don't matter at all, go play a war game. Go play Warhammer. You'll have more fun. This is not that good of a war game. None of these systems are that good of a war game. Warhammer's really fun. It's fine. You'll be fine. Are we now like I think having a light story is a-okay, but even that comes with an expectations of genre expectations. Or play D&D first. D&D first even leans into character a little bit, even though it's mega dungeon focused. You can do story in a mega dungeon, and you should. It should just be a more subtle story, a more nuanced story. Let me explain that. A story in a mega dungeon. You'll have NPCs running towns in there who have their weird stories. You'll have a history you're uncovering by finding these relics. If you think a mega dungeon doesn't have story, read Dungeon Meshi. Dungeon Meshi is a dungeon crawler set in a mega dungeon. And it has so much story and heart. It never leaves the mega dungeon because the story is about personal struggles in the dungeon and the exploration of the past of this location. Mega dungeon stories still should have story. Game hack, got it. Are you going to mention social skills, or is that a given? Social skills improve all social experiences, yeah. You had a one-shot your game club where classic D&D, Tiefling Merit, classic's like pre-second. Okay. I think we're good on genre expectations. We can move on to round 2. Let me take a look. Oh, yeah, this came in. A mega dungeon story is more in the history and what's happening within the dungeon itself, but that's still a story. Exactly. Exactly. There is no storyless game if you're doing it right. It can just be a story-light game. All right. Dungeon of the Mad Mage is a good dungeon module. Oh, is it? Abomination Vaults from Pathfinder is. Next. Choose a system. Don't just use 5th edition. 5th edition is a perfectly fine, functional game. It has a lot of mechanics I'm a huge fan of. Advantage is one of the best systems invented for a game. I'm a huge fan of it. That being said, holy fuck. Everybody who's like, yeah, I'm gonna play a horror game in D&D. I'm gonna play a sci-fi game in D&D. The metaphor that I use all the time, I've never played Vagabond, so I can't recommend it. Sorry. What a great stream. To Cat start a pirate themed game? Hell yeah. If you're going to play a mecha game, don't go, yeah, I downloaded this module of Homebrew to play D&D 5e as a mecha game. Lancer is a free mecha RPG with incredibly high reviews. You don't need to just play D&D. People who only play 5e, it's the exact same equivalent of if you were like, I want a farming sim, so I downloaded a farming sim mod for Skyrim. I want to play a shooter, so I downloaded a shooter mod for Skyrim. Does this mean that Skyrim's a bad game? Fuck no. It just means play fucking games that are built to do this. Is it like cutting chicken? No, it's like Skyrim. I like my metaphor. There are most systems are built with genre in mind. Yes. Also, even if you want to play a D&D like, this is just a fact, by the way. This isn't debatable. This isn't debatable. It's just, it is better. It's more supported. There's more options. It's more balanced. It's a more fun experience. There are some stories I would rather tell in 5e than Pathfinder 2. But also, making a boss fight in D&D 5e, we're not getting into that today. When I do a boss fight in D&D 5e, I need to run damage per round calculations, but PF2 is so balanced, I can make a good boss fight in like an hour. Rocker, that's not your fault, but your party are weaklings. Make them watch my video, because I'm great. What if you don't want to use XL? Play Pathfinder 2, you don't have to use XL. Most systems don't make you use XL. Pathfinder 1 makes you do XL because it's a bullshit game. Pathfinder 1 was built with archaic systems that suck. You don't need XL for PF2. I do recommend use a digital character sheet because leveling up feels like filling out tax forms in PF2. Once your sheet is done, it's actually pretty easy. My favorite system is Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. I'm a big fan of it. My big advice... You mostly play D&D because the campaign you started 5 years ago is in 5e. But some of the players barely know the rules. Yeah. What if you use MATLAB instead of XL? Just don't! Pathfinder 2 is a good system that doesn't need flowcharts and spreadsheets. It's just better D&D. Pathfinder 1 fans are bullshitters. They're lying to you. PF2 is an incredible game. It's incredible. Straight up best D20 game ever made. Ever played Pirate Borg? No. Ugh. But if you want a magical school, don't play D&D. Play Mage. You don't need D&D for the magical school. If you want a horror game, play Call of Cthulhu. If you want horror fantasy, seriously, if you want the mix of dungeon crawler and horror, okay? Fuck, I can't type. This is the game for you. If you actually want horror and fantasy and dungeon crawler, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay is perfect. It's incredible. It's a gritty system where you can get your arms chopped off naturally as part of combat, where getting the drop on someone lets you kill someone 5 times your strength. It is incredible. It is so good. And yes, if you want story-based games with less mechanical complexity, Powered by the Apocalypse games, there are so many versions. They are incredible systems. You've wanted to experiment with D10 and exploding dice systems? They can be cool. It's not my style. Shadow Dark is good dungeon horror? I can't recommend because I haven't played it. Dost thou have straw? I don't know what this means. Does anyone have any questions about choosing a system? It's basically as simple as figure out your genre expectations, find a system that best fits it. Your system determines your interactions. If you are playing a social game, pick a system that has social mechanics so that that's the part of the game that's expanded on. I want to point this out, right? Let's say you want a social intrigue game, all right? If you want a social intrigue game, picking 5e is shooting yourself in the foot. If you look at the player's handbook and the abilities that exist within it for players to use, the blue section is how much is there that is mechanical support for combat. The red one is not combat. Why the fuck are you playing a game where you want social intrigue where this much of the content is irrelevant to the majority of your story? This much of the abilities your players get access to, this much of what your game is built to accommodate is not what you're trying to do. That's insane. It's mental sickness. I think 5e is fine, but like, Jesus Christ. There is no real social interaction mechanic. A lot of games have good social interaction mechanics. PF2 does it better. PF2's skill and social interaction system is much more comprehensive. The Pathfinder 2 balance is more, it still favors combat, but if you want just a socially deeper dungeon crawler experience, PF2 is more like this. Yeah, specifically 5e, there's basically nothing. You think there should be more combat techniques? Play PF2! It has combat techniques! Marshals and casters feel distinct while giving marshals an option. You told your players other systems are D&D, so they accept to play like dog pill on cheese? No! That's so funny! You've been thinking about running game, but the only system you know is 5e. Systems are pretty easy to learn. It's not that hard. PF2, you build a character around the 8 action, which you can do, and it's incredible. All right. Does anyone have any questions about choosing a system, or are we ready to move on to part 3? What do we think? What do we think, Home Slices? More emphasis on actual role-playing? Yeah. Ugh, bevies. Any questions? Any questions before we move on, class? Besides word of mouth, any recommendation how to find more systems? Reddit. Google role-playing game horror Reddit. Role-playing game shonen Reddit. And the top voted comment will be great. Can confirm, tried a socially deep Magic School game in 5e. It was very hard to create significant interaction. It's not built for it. You prefer Call of Cthulhu for the social aspect? Call of Cthulhu is pretty cool. I like it, even though Call of Cthulhu is a shit story. Fight me, Lovecraft fans. It's his worst work. I actually like Lovecraft's writing. I just think Call of Cthulhu sucks shit. The game's good. The game's good. It's a great game. Terrible story. Good setup. The payoff is fucking shit. All right. All right. All right. The game is great, yeah. You think 5e is fine for social? No. No, you don't. You don't actually think that. What you think is your players are good enough at role-playing that a shit system that isn't accommodating what you want is working okay. I guarantee you 100% that if you play a game with more mechanical support for difficult social interactions, you are going to have more fun. If social interactions are your main focus... Exactly, Carly's right. What are the pros of PF2 over 5e? Let's talk about that in a moment, actually, yeah. If your main goal for a game is deep social interactions, 5e's social systems are not good enough. If your players are good enough at role-playing, they can make do with anything. But you will have a better chance of enjoying a social game, a social-focused game, if you play a game with actual mechanical support for it. So the pros of Pathfinder 2 are balance. It's easier to make good combat encounters that don't feel unfair. Character diversity is great without being broken. Knowing the game better lets you min-max to create interesting characters rather than overpowered ones. You gain more flexibility and command over the mechanics without actually becoming broken the way you do in 5e. And here's the biggest asset. Here's the biggest asset of Pathfinder 2. How fun D&D 5 is starts here, and it goes up as you approach level 9, and then it goes like this. Pathfinder 2's fun level is this. It's the exact same the entire way through. Level 1, amazing. Level 20, amazing. 5e has a sweet spot of incredible joy. From like level 5 to level 9, 5e is one of my favorite games. Why the fuck am I playing a game that starts being fun at 3 and stops being fun at 11? That's insane! Pathfinder has level 20 modules. Also true. Also true. And the action economy is fantastic and easy to learn. Ooh. Alright. Why would it stop being fun? 5e gets incredibly unbalanced after a certain point. The combats become whoever moves first wins. If you allow people to multi-class, the amount of broken you get from level 11 onwards is insane. Ask yourself, why did Baldur's Gate stop at level 11 or whatever? Because D&D spells stop being interesting after that point. And a lot of games start at level 3 for the same reason, whereas in Pathfinder 2 that never happens, because level 1 characters are all unique and interesting. Turns get too long, numbers get too big. No, numbers get too big is not a problem. Pathfinder 2's numbers get bigger and it never stops being fun. Can you lose levels of the same character? Not in D&D anymore. You used to be able to in older versions. Anyways, we can move on. That's my big takeaway. I like PF2 better, but I think D&D 5e is a fine system. It's just, it's old. PF2 is newer. It has more advanced tech. All right. All right. Guys, this one's going to hurt a lot of your feelings. I'm sorry. It's time that I insult so many of you. You're going to hate it. You're going to hate it. Ooh. You're gonna hate this. It's gonna get worse. There you go. There you go. This is a fact. This is a fact that people aren't ready for. All right, what is a canned setting? A canned setting is a setting that was invented by someone who makes settings for RPGs or otherwise adapts a setting into a place to play RPGs that is ready to go that you can slot your story into. I don't mean a module. Let me get started. I don't mean a module. Modules are different. I mean a setting. Like my favorite, which was the inspiration for Taldane Taldore for Matt, by the way, is Pathfinder's World. It's incredible. I forget what it's called. Pathfinder's setting is incredible. Faerun from D&D, the Warhammer settings. There are so many great RPG settings. The World of Mage, kind of, sort of, or the Dark Universe. Canned settings are great. So the idea of a canned setting is all of the history, the gods, the world come pre-made, ready to use. Am I in the talented 10%? It's not about talent. It's not about talent. It's not about talent. Black Sun is such a cool setting. Spelljammer is a cool setting. There's so many great settings out there that you can stage your game in. The reality is, you have limited time. You aren't a professional DM, probably. The amount of time that you have isn't infinite. Meaning, any time you spend on building a setting, you are not spending designing traps and puzzles and fights. You have limited, or writing the story. Just rip the plot from your favorite book. You can if you aren't, if that's not what you're good at. Eberron is cool. Yeah, no, Spelljammer's in the D&D universe. I know that, but it is a different setting. It's a different setting because you're interacting with the world very differently. Shouldn't your sessions be more personalized? Fuck no. That's dumb. That's stupid. If you think using a canned setting means your story is not personalized, you're a lunatic. So let me tell you about a story. I invented an aspect of the Pathfinder world. I came up with the idea that the gods created this creature out of magical ink to write the world. It was a tool to draft reality and then left to wither and dry. And it has now become this warlock patron that is connected to my players. And the entire plot circled around this dark ink that was left dead in the inkwell of creation in the Fey world. And it had been awoken by a ritual and was now bound to people. And the main character of our party was connected to it. See? None of that is in the lore of Pathfinder. But by using Pathfinder's setting, I didn't have to come up with history, or gods, or planes, or trade routes, or city names. And I let my players build a town within this, but that's not how we did the larger setting. The setting was all there, and I got to put my time into that cool story. And it was still incredibly personalized. It was a genuine question from new players. No reason to call you an idiot. All right, Snoll, I'm sorry. I want you to know, if I ever call you guys dumb, I'm being hyperbolic. You're not dumb. But it is, your game is personalized by the story you create within the world. But what's great is, you can world build a section of the world that hasn't been touched yet. Invent new lore, invent new connections, new figures, new prophecies, whatever you want. But by using a canned setting within that world, you don't have to come up with the rest of it. No, I think I was mean, but... what else? Do you have the time to make an entire universe? Now, I want to give the exception. You might think that the 10% is for the talented, that I am special. Fuck no! The 10% is special requirements. Brennan Lee Mulligan needs to make settings because the genre play he engages with is insane. Brennan Lee Mulligan runs a Dimension 20 season that's about Candyland Game of Thrones. or magical New York or whatever. He is doing highly thematic, contained stories. If you want to do a very specific contained story that tells a very, very specific genre, that requires setting construction. If you are going to do this, my recommendation is to keep it highly simplified and then improvise off of your players' interactions with the world to expand the lore. As long as your players are not familiar with the canon setting, you can build the world around the characters a lot better. I disagree, Artorias, in that you get like one apology point for me being mean. Here's the deal. Artorias is right that if the players aren't familiar, you can improvise more, but he's wrong because you can still change things even if the players know the setting. Talk about them beforehand, be like, this is what we're adding in. The reason a canon setting is so great is because your players can just look shit up on a wiki and interact with the world and setting. And that if they look at where they're going in the world and say, what's in this direction, you don't have to make it up. You have a resource to tap into. You're an improvisation DM mostly? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Use a canon setting. I don't care. You like having your own world? Doesn't matter. No, I think you're missing, not a critic. I think you just want to disagree with me because you don't like that I'm coming at you, but you're actually wrong. You want to have your own technology? You're still wrong. Add that to a setting. That doesn't get rid of the benefits. If you are feeling contained by a canon setting that you can't make changes, if it's bugging you, glasses, no, then it'll fog. I can't add glasses. Yeah, if you want to add history, just add one event, not the whole thing. Do it. Yeah. You can have a history to a world. You wanting to have freedom is not an excuse to not use a canon setting. You've been making your own world for 8 years. I still think it doesn't matter. Obviously, your world would be better than it would be otherwise, but not a critic. I want to pitch to you the difference. If your players want to know something about the world, you are not a professional. Paizo's world, Pathfinder's world, has been being made by game designers for 2 decades. Your world's been made by you, non-professionally, for 8 years. If your players want to know something, there's a good chance you still haven't come up with it yet. And even if you have, they need to go through you, ask about it, and get info. You free up so much space for your players by just going, yeah, it's in this setting, and it lets them Google shit and know about the gods, know about the countries, say, I'm from here. It gives them extra space to be able to confidently interact and ground themselves in the world, and it frees up your creative space for interacting with this world in a way that modifies your story. I stand by, fundamentally, there is no reason to use your own setting unless you need to tell a very specific story. Or, one other exception. You are only playing D&D to interact with world building, and that is your main drive. In which case, go for it, I guess. I don't know. If that is your main fulfillment, is world building, make your own setting, who gives a shit. I'm also going to be real. Most homebrew settings suck shit and are generic fantasy, and there's no reason for them not to be a canon setting. You like your world building? If world building's your main drive, then whatever. Okay, what about the disadvantage of being asked something you didn't study and then you have to stop the game while you read a manual or wiki? People can wait for you to skim an article for 5 minutes. That's fine. Like, they can wait. That's way better. I don't know if you know this, but you're also gonna have to just make shit up otherwise. And if you just make something up, it's getting inconsistent. If you're making up an entire city in a moment, it doesn't keep the cohesive pictures easily. But I still do think, not a critic, there's almost no reason to build your own setting. I used to feel this. I used to be in this camp down here. Whoop. But realistically, I realized there's truly no benefit. Every argument people make is false. Every argument people make for this, other than I like it, is fake. There's no reason to use your own setting. You will have a better time saving time for telling a story by modifying an existing setting that gives your players more chance to play. You don't need your players to Google where to find... What? No! Artorias, you're insane! Why does that matter? Artorias, that's the dumbest argument I've heard. I'm sorry. I don't need my players to Google where something is. They won't! And you're not running a module. You're just taking a setting, designing your own piece of it, modifying it however you need for your story. Yeah. It's fine to make shit up once on the spot, then clarify. You'll read and learn correct usage after session. Also true. You can just improvise something in the moment and correct it and hone it later. You feel the assumption of what if I don't know ignores the fact that you're playing with friends on a panel of judges. Also true. But Artorias, no, there's no reason. Your players, if you're doing a good story, aren't going to Google where to find treasure in the world. That's insane. They're engaging with role-playing. And you know what you can do if they do that? You just say another adventurer got that. That's not the story we're telling. Another adventurer took that. Another adventurer just went and grabbed the treasure already. Because we're not telling that story. Like, it's literally that simple. You modify the setting how you want, make the piece you want. The reason you're using a canned setting isn't because you're not creative. It's because you offload millions of hours of labor. What if the original setting is small like a city? Then put that city in an existing world. You don't need to study the lore, Caden. You really don't. No, not at all. All right, Caden, I think you're using existing settings wrong then. You don't need to study the lore basically at all. Learn the basics of the pantheons. Read like one wiki. I'll tell you, I've ran some of my best games in a setting that I read about for about an hour. Like, if you just read up a wiki article, learn about the basics, you can improvise and learn as you go as is needed. And it's that simple. Like, there isn't a huge study cost. There is only benefit. I'm sorry. Because I don't know if you know this, Caden, but all that shit you feel like you have to study is way harder to invent than it is to look up. You've run Star Wars for Star Wars nerds? Okay, but Caden, that's the exception because Star Wars isn't... In my opinion, Star Wars isn't that great of a setting. There's like 3 separate continuities. Star Wars nerds expect you to recognize all of it. But now, here's what I'll say. And I will do this. If you feel bullied by Star Wars nerds, you need more backbone as a DM anyways. You need to be like, hey, tell me why what I said is wrong. And then if you can, you say, in this region, it's different. Easy. Easy. No, I don't buy cake mix. Canned settings are not cake mix. Okay, look, you guys are misunderstanding. I need to elaborate because you fuckers are not able to take in information. You aren't hearing what I'm saying. You're hearing what you want me to be saying so that you can say I'm a special bunny who's an exception and I shouldn't follow this advice. It's not cup ramen. All right, it's closer to cup ramen because you can modify it. What? I have a bad cold sore. Here's what y'all are... Okay, fine. You meant it in a positive way, Snoll? That's fair, but also it's not accurate. Let me explain. What you guys seem to be hearing is... What I am actually saying is... Give me a second. Give me a second here. Your time is limited. By basing your setting inside a larger one, much of the other world building is handled cohesively without labor cost, and done better than you likely could in the areas which are not your expertise. This is objectively true. This is objectively true. There really aren't. No, dog, Caden. There are almost no benefits to building your own setting if it is not out of need for a specific genre. If you need to build a setting to tell the story you want to, do it. But if you don't, you shouldn't. That's what I'm saying. I already said the benefits. The benefits of not using a canned setting are either you love world building or there is something so specific that you are craving as the story to tell that it requires a unique setting. We don't hear the first statement? Yeah. Oh, you didn't hear the first statement. It's like you don't need... I'm not listing our examples. Not everybody's agreeing with me. There are disagreements. I don't want to call you idiots. Moonboy, you haven't really disagreed with me at all. I think you guys aren't seeing that a lot of what I've responded to is on YouTube also. All right. No, not a critic. Are you insane? You don't have an encyclopedic memory of your world just because you made it. That's not how it works. I have invented settings and I don't remember all the details. It's why I keep notes. I think not a critic just doesn't like being called out. Not a critic, if you acknowledge that you're doing it because you like it, I'll back off. That's fine. But there isn't some inherent benefit. If you're telling a standard D&D dungeon diving adventure, there isn't really benefit to building your own worlds. You spend upwards of 6 months prep for some campaigns. After doing it for 10 years, you basically say, fuck it, we ball. Usually runs a better story. That's why you write it down. You acknowledge that already? Yes, but that means you have to look it up the same way you do otherwise. Getting rid of one of your arguments. You can call you that. You deserve it 24/6. Probably true. Caden, what canned settings did you use? Because you're wrong. I say this as someone who's world building a custom setting right now, by the way, because I'm building it for a specific game I want to make. Like, I am building my own setting because it's for a game I want to make that nothing fits. I acknowledge that if the story you want to tell doesn't fit anywhere, you need to build your own setting. But I think 90% of players would genuinely benefit from just using something canned and doing some research. See, Crodnil, that's exactly what I'm saying. You rebuilt the setting as you needed for your story, but it had a foundation. I'm in the top 10%. I'm not in the top 10%. That's an eventual goal. That one day I will make my own system and my own game to play in. Right now, I run exclusively canned settings because most of my stories are not so genre dependent. Like, I add a ton of shit. I add things into my stories. But truly, unless you are telling a story so specific. Drawk is right and this is just an ego problem? That's what I'm saying. Okay, Caden, that's why you use shit settings. I hate to break it to you. D&D is one of the worst D&D settings. All it has is cool monsters. Caden, before you give up on canned settings, I want you to... What the fuck is it called? Why can't... I want you to look up Galarian, the world of Pathfinder. It has the best pantheon of gods. It has the best nations and histories. I promise you, Caden, I stopped using the D&D setting because I hated it, and it's what made me want to build my own settings. But then I tried Galarian. I'm never going back, man. Galarian is beautiful. Galarian is so good. I promise you, Caden, before you give up, I was in your shoes. I almost gave up on canned settings because I was using D&D. And their settings. Spelljammer and Dark Sun are cool. But I promise you, try Galarian. It's what shifted me back to believing in the can. Galarian has fantasy western. It is fantasy western. It has Victorian horror. It has Viking fantasy. It has Wastelanders. It's got science fantasy. There's Conan the Barbarian tech barbarians with giant microchip swords. But if you change aspects of a can setting, that defeats the... No! Because the parts you're... It doesn't really not a critic. It just means there's places where it functions the same as yours. Yeah. Yes, if you change it, there's places that they won't know. But the vast majority, they will. If you want to build a campaign around a specific history for the players to explore, when the world set history created should be created alongside the history made up. That sentence I don't think is cohesive. Dark Sun and Spelljammer settings are the only D&D settings you've been interested in. Eberron's also cool. I'll give Eberron something. As far as specific systems go, how many homebrew mechanics are too much before you should find a more appropriate system? There's no exact limit, but when it stops being recognizable and you are so desperate for extra content that you're homebrewing half the fucking game, leave 5e. God, it really is an ego thing. It's just an ego thing. No, what I said at the beginning is true. You are only homebrewing a setting to soothe your ego because you think it's lazy not to. That's all. Considering your current campaign is science, fantasy, cyberpunk, dystopia, zombie, horror, where the fuel can create zombies, what setting would you use other than homebrew? I'm literally not joking. Numeria in Pathfinder. Pathfinder, Galarian, Numeria. I'm not even joking. I'm not even joking. Numeria is a place where a spaceship crashed eons ago and created, like, despotic groups of tech barbarians where there's robots and crazy radioactive fuel leaking out of crashed spaceships, and aliens come to try to reclaim the magically infected technology, and an AI god has been implanted in a mountain of a crashed spaceship to become the new guide of the realm. I'm not even joking. Numeria would fit exactly what you described literally perfectly. Yeah, no, Numeria fits what you said 100%. 100% Numeria works. It's why I love the Pathfinder setting. Every country's a new genre. Yeah, if you love world building and that's why you want to play D&D, then make your own settings. That's fine. No, Numeria is literally perfect. Like, it's so good. I've run a game in Numeria. It's amazing. What system would I use for One Piece? No, Mutants and Masterminds is what I'd use. D&D doesn't work because it limits your resources and the powers aren't fun enough. Mutants and Masterminds is what I'd use to run One Piece. Look it up, Crodnil. It's amazing. It has a barbarian king who's immortal because he's using a drug built out of, like, starship fluid. Ugh. What country in Pathfinder's high school D&D slice of life? In the African setting of the Mwangi Expanse, there's a highly decorated magical school. I'm not even joking. They made an award-winning Afro fantasy module based off of a magical school. Pathfinder is such a good setting. I'm not joking. They made a slice of life dungeon crawling magical school for D&D wizards in Africa. Literally, Pathfinder has a campaign for this. It's Afro Fantasy Magical School in the Mwangi Expanse. Pathfinder rules, guys. I'm sorry. If you want a canned setting, Galarian can't be beat. You ran a One Piece campaign in Savage Worlds? That sounds good too. I'd lean Mutants and Masterminds, but Savage Worlds sounds good. Revolutionary France. Gotcha. Pathfinder, Camp... Tal'Dorei. Actually, Tal'Dorei is just magical France, yeah. Oh, wait, not Tal'Dorei. That's Haldane. No, Taldor. Taldor. Yeah, it's what inspired Matt Mercer. Current day America. There is actually an American-inspired country ruled by knights called the Eagle Knights. If you made it more dystopic and said that the Eagle Knights had been dethroned, that would be America. What game system would I use for Steven Universe? Something powered by the Apocalypse, because it's more flexible. Powered by the Apocalypse, I think there's got to have one that would fit. All right. World of Darkness, maybe? I don't know. I'd go Powered by Apocalypse. This feels like a psyop to get people to use a Pathfinder setting. No, it's just that if people ask me, what can I do for this? I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you a map. If somebody's going to tell me, ask me, what should I use to for this genre of fantasy? The reason I keep doing it, bringing up Pathfinder, is every one of these countries, and not the sections, each of these countries is a different genre of fantasy. So if you're going to ask me what canned setting can accommodate this genre, the answer is Pathfinder. Pathfinder is literally built on the idea that each of these countries is a different genre of fantasy. So you are able to run basically anything you want in the Pathfinder world, and they each have a comprehensive history. And also, I'm not joking, Pathfinder has objectively the best gods in any fantasy. My favorite fantasy setting isn't Pathfinder. My favorite fantasy setting is Warhammer Fantasy. That being said, Pathfinder is going to be the go-to as a setting for most of what you're looking for. You didn't need a magical girl story? That would be harder to make work. Yeah, look, not a critic. If you're not going to enjoy running a game without making your own setting, then you're doing it for the world building. Here's the deal. I'm not wrong, not a critic, because if you're only going to enjoy the game if you're using your setting, which is kind of the line you're trying to draw, then yeah, world building is important to you and you kind of need to do it because it's what you're enjoying. But if you're arguing there's actual utility, like, I just think you're wrong. I made the exception for where there's utility, which is where your story is so specific it requires it. You're not a fan of hodgepodge genres to try to capture all genres? Cardin, I'm normally not. Pathfinder does it so well by making it so that there's such a comprehensive history and each of these countries has a relationship to each other that it feels believable. I'm honestly, Cardin, I have to tell you, I didn't expect to like the Pathfinder setting because of exactly what you said, but all of the countries are interconnected in such meaningful ways that it doesn't feel jarring when you're playing. It just allows you to easily meet genre expectations within a world. It's surprisingly cohesive. I promise you guys, if you look into Galarian, you're going to find it so compelling. It's so well built for TTRPGs. All right. What's next? I think we're good on settings. I stand by what I said. It's about ego. Feel if you come to the talk how to Dungeon Master better, start arguing with the advice instead of just thinking I disagree, but I'll hear you out. Feels like you lost. I agree. People just don't want to be called out. Not a critic isn't entirely wrong, but it's not that restrictive because you just literally can choose. You just can't change it. I think we got to talk about the sub things in this category. So let's talk about the sub qualities of choosing a setting. All right. So here's some important things you might not have considered that are important for determining what setting you want to use. All right. Level of fantasy. This is always important. Level of fantasy. What did I put next? Oh, yep. We come back to genre expectations. Oop. I should probably change the number, huh? Cultural influences. If you need to use 5e for some reason, run science fantasy, recommend starships and space worms. I just wouldn't use it for science fantasy, but I understand people will. Because their friends will only do that. And then 4, viability. I think these are things you should consider before deciding to use your own setting. All right? Number 1. How present do you want magic and magical otherworldly things to be? Number 2. What genre expectations does my setting need to accommodate? Number 3, are there any particular cultural influences I need to think about to be able to use this setting? And number 4, viability. Is this made to be a sandbox? Is there enough to play with? Are there resources to look things up easily? I think you really need to consider all of these. So I once ran a game in The Witcher's world, and it fit all of these perfectly. But I wish I hadn't because of viability. There wasn't a breadth of resources to easily look things up. It didn't feel like there was enough in the fan base built to support research and development to the world the way I wanted to. So I actually think it was the wrong choice. I think all of these need to be considered, and if the game you want to run can't be met by these, that's when you homebrew. If you can't find an existing setting that satisfies these requirements, that's when you shift to homebrewing a setting. That's on you. Witcher D&D is fantastic. Look, we had a good time. It was a great game. Did 5e shockingly well. I think we need to stop arguing, not a critic. If you don't want the advice, don't be here. It's fine. If you are allowed to not listen to me, but if you're going to keep arguing, I'm sorry, I actually think I'm right. I think I'm right that if these are satisfied by an existing setting, you should use it. And I do recommend looking into Galarian. It's surprisingly good. I know you'd think it's as a hodgepodge it wouldn't work, but it's fantastic. These are what I'd consider. Let's move on. We should get to another point. Level of fantasy is mostly on the game system than the setting, in your opinion? No and yes. The game system, yes. Almost every class is magical in D&D. Bunch of races have spells. 5e is always high magic. However, I think it's worth noting, if you are running a game in the Pathfinder world and you want it to feel low magic, that's a fucking mistake. The Pathfinder world is too high magic. There's only one country that isn't, but it is. It's fine. We're moving on. But I do think you need to consider it. Like, if you want a lot of magic everywhere, you can't play in the Lord of the Rings play box, you know? That's not the sandbox for you. All right, let's talk about how to build setting. So this applies to if you're homebrewing or if you're using a canned setting. All right, blossoming versus telescoping. Who knows what these mean? Does anybody know what these terms mean? Basically, if you want to world build from the blossoming perspective, you start with the smallest point of the story. One key location that is important to what you're doing, and you work on its details. Is it a town, a river, a castle, a palace, a museum, etc.? And you build outwards from there with less and less detail. Telescoping is the opposite mechanism. You start from the widest view that applies to your story and fill it in with low detail, and from there, ask yourself further questions, refining towards the point of your story's origin. The important part is, no matter how you do it, you fill in more details the closer you are to the heart of the story and the start of the story. Those are the two places you put the most detail. The heart being the location and characters most key to the story's importance, and starting point being the location we're actually starting the campaign in. What if a high school build your own setting for that, Snow. That's too complicated. But also, if you're just starting DMing, don't do that. That's too hard. What if you want to base a setting in my house? Good luck. Each of these has a different benefit. I think if you're going to go for something more esoteric and more about the planes, the gods, you should do a telescoping view. But if you want something that feels more personal, do a blossoming view. Start by creating a rich atmosphere in the area around your players. Theory crafting is how you come up with stuff in physics? Makes sense. All right, I think we're good on that. Does anybody have any question? I just think it's important to understand which view you're coming in from, but this one's not that complicated. Oh. Snow, it sounds like you're not, but good luck. When is the Drugs House setting book coming out? Never. You people. You fucking people. All right. All right. This is something I really want to talk about. This is a complicated one that I'm going to need a bit to set up. But. Oh, I want to go back for a second because there's something I wanted to bring up, but I forgot to write it down. All right? All right? Here's what I wanted to bring up earlier when we were talking about using canned settings. A big argument I hear about not using canned settings is it's too hard to know how much I can modify the world, how to interact with it as it is, and build it up to be my own while accepting parts of it aren't. Hot take. Get fucking good. That skill is identical to the skill of storytelling that is taking your player characters, your players' characters, and folding them into the story to make them important. And if you don't have that skill, you're not a good DM. So if your argument is it's too hard to know how to tweak and work with something else that someone else came up with and accommodate it into my story, you are too selfish-minded for DMing, and you need to fix that. Because if your instinct is to say, how do I negotiate between this inflexible other and my story? It's not your story. You are a storyteller as part of a collaboration. You are presenting a collaborative opportunity, and it is always your players' stories. If you don't have the skill to mix your story intentions with the story intentions of others, you're going to be a bad DM anyways. So get fucking good at that skill because it's the most important thing in your toolbox. I stand by that, by the way. All right, all right. Now we'll do the defining your style because it's less hostile. This one's more pleasant. This one I'm gonna be nicer to you for this one, okay, guys? Okay. We do an A, and that is we do a B. Ooh, this one's fun. Okay, these are all important questions. And by the way, these shift story to story, game to game. The only limit to modifying a setting is your ability to make it work for the mechanics of your system, what your players want. He's exactly right. Or she, I don't know. You love when your style is defined? Hell yeah. When do we get the Drawk apology video? If I hurt your feelings too much. All right. All right. Defining your style. This changes game to game. But this is the style you are telling a story in and what you default to, what you're good at. When do we get the Drawk aggression video? Every day, baby. Planned versus improvised. Planned versus improvised. But I also compliment you, Snow, to make up for it. An abusive relationship, really. Planned versus improvised. This is obvious. How much are you planning? How much are you writing out? How much are you structuring? How much is off the riff? Where I usually balance is my story beats are planned. What I want to happen. I build intentions for my villains. I build intentions for the actors in my world. But I allow everybody else to modify what's going to happen with their actions. I improvise outcomes, and I'm willing to improvise random encounters, make shit up on the fly. I plan combat encounters. I plan enemy areas. I improvise random plot beats, characters they'll meet on the street. The balance for me is somewhere about 60-40 towards the improvisation being heavier, about 40% planned. I like my boss fights, my meaningful encounters to be highly planned. I also like to come up with puzzles and exploration that is highly planned in refined spaces, but improvise the broader exploration between refined places. Hub versus travel. People don't think enough about this. This is the most important part. Are you storytelling in a style of a road trip and a travel game? Or are you centering around a hub? There is a balance between these. You can have a hub that you're mostly away from. I prefer hub-based stories. The reason being, you get to create a cast of NPCs that the players heavily invest in, care about a lot, and have an incredible amount of attachment to. You create a place they care about with a hub-based game. I think it is easier to tell a meaningful story that is hub-based. However, travel-based games are more common for a reason. You get to see more of the world. You get to interact with more interesting things. I'm probably about 80-20 towards hub on this one. Also, almost never set a location setting for an encounter in stone if you want it to happen. I agree and disagree, but yeah, you need to be flexible. We'll talk about story writing next time. This is about the setup. Mobile hub on something like a ship can have the best of both worlds. That's true. Pirate games have a big blessing. Combat and roleplay. What's your balance between combat and roleplay? Do you want combat every session? Most sessions? Are you mostly doing it for combat? This is very important. It's what kind of games you run. I'm 60-40 roleplay on this one usually. Would it be possible to break down travel into multiple hubs? It can, but it's harder to manage. Because then you have casts of characters in multiple places, and it's a lot tougher. Of the games I've run to completion, most of them have been hub-based. What can you hand-wave is a question people don't ask enough. This is largely tied with genre, but not exclusively. If you want a hard survival game, care about food, water, and carrying capacity. If you want a dungeon crawler, you should care about food, water, and carrying capacity. If you're doing nobles in the political courts, who gives a shit about food, water, and carrying capacity? Instead, we're measuring reputation points with each faction. But you don't need to worry about reputation points with factions in the dungeon. You need to think about what should there be mechanical focus on, what am I keeping attention on, and what am I hand waving? Decide this up front. There are games where you won't track gold. Decide that immediately. Let your players know, hey, gold doesn't matter this game because you're in the wilderness. If you find treasure, it might be meaningful as like an inventory item, but it is not currency. Tell your players right away what you're going to hand wave, because everything you're willing to hand wave frees up brain space. If you care more about the story, don't count ammo and rations. Totally. If you're doing a fun exploration game through the wilderness, but you're never going to make the environment a challenge, don't care about ammo and rations until the arc where it becomes relevant for an arc. If it's only noble base, the only carrying capacity you care about is your soldiers. True. I think deciding what mechanics are irrelevant early on is really important. You can hand wave lore to a certain extent. You know the history of First World War I, but its conversation topic hardly comes up. Yeah, I'm more talking about the style of hand waving, of like what you leave out of play. When it comes to lore, that is more the world building aspect of only mention in lore and world building what either comes up or is essential to your story. Whatever comes up should be mentioned to add texture. But if it doesn't come up, it doesn't come up. Anyone have any questions about style? Now remember, style is both what you lean towards and what you adjust to run a game as for a specific game to achieve a certain goal. How do you get a comprehensive of what's hand waveable? You learn over time. I think there's some stuff that can't be. For 5e, for instance, saving throws are going to be saving throws. You got to keep them. But I think you can, you could be like, hey, tool expertise probably isn't going to come up. You probably shouldn't hand wave that, but you could. More examples of hand waving, XP. This is a game where I'm going to level you up based off of set story beats. When you accomplish something I think is awesome, you'll level up, but we're not tracking XP. We aren't going to use short rests. We're just going to assume that you get refreshed between combat encounters because our time span is so long that resting doesn't matter. You're going to be traveling a long distance and probably only having an encounter every week or so. So we're not going to worry about resting. You're going to be recharged each fight. So in this game, you guys are cared for nobles. You can't purchase it. Oh no, you're gladiators. You can't purchase stuff yourself, so gold doesn't matter. But as like gladiatorial slave mercs, you're going to be given equipment. Milestone lever superior. It depends on the system. In D&D, yes. In Pathfinder, no. Because Pathfinder's experience is really, really good. It just takes 1,000 XP to level up every level. It's really easy and good. You're playing a game with XP for the first time since 3.5. You're hating it? XP can be good. In some games, not D&D. Can you hand wave action and travel restrictions? The length of a turn? Yeah. You can hand wave how much people can talk. You can hand wave, yeah, you get an object interaction every turn. There's a lot you can do. Weird Snow? It helps because your players sometimes, turns out, get too wordy and technically beginner style. Okay. Yeah, you can... Travel restrictions is absolutely one. Overland speed. Shadow Drawk? No. Is hand wave only mechanics and not story moments? I think don't hand wave your story. We'll get into storytelling next week, but a big mistake players make, or DMs make, making things not feel important, is by rushing to the important shit. The reason that Anor Londo feels special in Dark Souls is I trudged through literal shit for a third of my gameplay so far. If you don't give story attention to the parts that aren't special, the special parts won't feel special either. You need to give attention in story to most everything unless it's an absolute repeat. But in that case, it's about changing the speed of time passing rather than skipping something. When I'm talking about your DM style, hand waving is about what mechanics you care about, what you don't, and what you're going to shorthand. If you want long time travel with much time in between encounters in 5e, recommend the 8-hour short rest and 1 week long rest. That can be good. You hand wave a lot of traveling, clear destination, maybe include 1 or 2 planned encounters. I think wrong but right idea. You can move a lot of traveling forwards, but make sure you give sensory details as you do. Explain the smell of the landscape, the sights they get, the sounds they hear over land, what the grass looks like. Give a little bit of setting, It only takes like a minute to give a great description of traveling through an area and make people feel like they've earned their traveling. Sounds like shopping haggle shouldn't be skipped. No! Shopping haggling can be skipped if your game isn't about that. I would actually say just letting shopping be, hey, this thing's in the player's handbook for this much, can I buy it, is fine if your story isn't about the gear. If the gear just facilitates shit and you're not doing dungeon crawls or war or whatever, and you're like, yeah, you can have whatever, you can skip haggling. That's fine to handwave. Handwave the brothels? Okay, that's fair. You'd rather them just understand the area than have to suffer it? I think that's fair. I think the environment, though, can be one of your best friends as an obstacle. All right. All right. We talked enough about this. It's time for whatever the next one was. I'm glad I wrote these down. It was more complicated than I expected. All right. We got another complicated one. That sounds like a massive list of minute details to put down what to handwave and what not to. Not really. You just think about what your game and what you want to put mental tax on and decide this is not going to be relevant. Lots of times, carrying capacity does not feel relevant to the story. A lot of times it does. God. You handmade initiative rolls, you go first as heroes unless ambushed. I've seen a lot of different ways of doing initiative. Again, I think PF2 has done it the best in my opinion, but that's just how it is. It's very similar to D&D, but with some differences that make it more fun. Oh. All right. All right. Handwave, not handmade. Oh, you handwave initiative rolls. I understand. I think that's fine. It's not my favorite solution. It to me feels a little inelegant, but I think initiative can be one of the big clunkiest parts of D20 games, so I think that's not terrible. All right. Let's see. Let's see. 6. Create space for your players to thrive. This is about them. You're doing it for them. You're in it for them, Chief. All right. I'm going to give you some subcategories, but there's more examples than what I'm going to list. These are just ones I thought of that would be important considerations. So there's going to be more topics than just the subcategories. And we'll talk about them as we are. Is there a protagonist? We'll get into this. Who is nobility or otherwise high status? Seed connections. All right, that one's going to need a lot of elaboration, so we'll get to that in a moment. But I'm going to start with the other ones. All right? These are incredibly important. May you have permission to use me and Mama Drawk as NPC pirate captains? Hell yeah. That sounds great. All right, we ready? We ready, guys? Is there a protagonist? So, sorry, let's start with the broad topic. Creating space for your players to thrive. Tailor the game, the setting, the intended story, the villains, the beats to your player characters. Session 0 gives you an opportunity. By having a Session 0 where everyone builds their characters together, you have an opportunity. I'm going to explain how I do this. Since I like hubs, I will often have my Session 0 be a game where me and the players build story for each other. So I'm going to tell you something really cool that I did, okay? My favorite game I've ever run, the way that we started it was by everyone building their characters, and then we were going to build the town together. And after we built the town and came up with what it had and slotted it into the canned setting, I got everybody to write 1 good thing and 2 bad things that could happen to someone in their life. Then, we went through their backstories from about 10 years in the past, and every year I had them draw cards that I was holding. Half of them, or I think like 3/4 were empty, and then the other ones were the ones they wrote. And they would get a card that says, okay, this bad thing happened to you this year of your backstory. what did that look like? We built a story together, we connected them, and then I had them each write. This was based off of Z Bashu, I think is his name on YouTube. I had them each write 3 rumors. 1 true, that they are not ashamed of, 1 true that they are ashamed of, and 1 false that they would be ashamed of were it true. Then we each passed those out and handed them around randomly, so each person had 1 rumor from each other player, but they didn't know if it was true or not. It was a great way of inserting each person having a little bit of secret knowledge, and it was a great way of, in the earlier part, building a connected story. This created excellent space for every player to be part of the world that we just designed together, to have grounding with each other, to learn a bit about how each other had existed in this world. I really liked it. It worked so well. I'm going to do it again. It's my favorite way I've ever started a campaign. It was experimental, and it went brilliantly. Is there a protagonist? A lot of people think that your game should not have a protagonist. Anyone who's played Rogue Trader knows they're wrong. The only thing wrong with having a main character is when that wasn't agreed upon at the beginning of the game. People love to support each other. If early on in the game, your party agrees one of you is the main character, that is fine. The big deal is, do you accept that? Because if you decide that one of the characters is a protagonist based off the story you want to tell, or what the players want, it is your obligation to find ways to make their story everyone else's story. You need to build the setting and your plans to accommodate the idea that this person has extra space and extra narrative weight, and everyone else needs to be made important by their actions. You can have a protagonist, just don't have a favorite, let alone an unwilling one. That's a big difference, yes. If you are giving someone favoritism, that's different than them being the main character. The main character can change arc to arc, also true. Y'all crazy, okay. Not responding to that one. Okay, who in your party is nobility or otherwise high status? If someone in your party is royalty, nobility, etc., you are going to need to make space to accommodate that. Their importance will matter. Members of the clergy will find them important. If they're a knight, commoners will look at them in fear or awe. They'll be looked to as a role model. They'll have presence. If they're royalty, even nobles should be sucking up to them. Whatever your players are, explain the protagonist more. We can get back to that when we get to questions. You need to recognize that whatever status your players have is something that they should feel. Your NPCs should be ready to fold around the presence that their status gives them to make the roleplay feel meaningful. I should change this to B, huh? We'll get to the protagonist in questions because you can ask me to elaborate on them. Main characters should change every arc? No. No, main characters don't need to change every arc. My favorite game I've ever run that I was just talking about, one of the characters was chosen by the ink. One of them had special powers, a connection to the story. She was the noble heir who had to prove herself to earn the house and the name of the family. The story was never not about her. But I molded the story to make the other characters essential to her story as often as possible. And nobody was ever salty about it because they knew from the beginning of Session 0, that the story was more about her journey and that they were supporting it. And when you make that clear, people are so happy to be part of it. But it has to be made clear early on if you're only going to have one protagonist. Otherwise, you should either have no main character or a main character changing every arc. But I stand by, you don't need to have a rotating cast of main characters. There can be a protagonist, and it runs an incredible game experience if it is agreed upon and communicated clearly. I think people shy away from this as a storytelling feature, when in reality, it actually makes some of the most compelling games you'll ever play. Because knowing you're a supporting character lets you support. Okay. I promise you guys, it's better than you think it is. People are afraid of this, but it can lead to some of your best games if you just have a clear protagonist. It's not a thing you should always do, but if it fits your genre expectations, don't be afraid of it. Rogue Trader is proof of this because the Rogue Trader is the main character. All right, this is the most important one. Listen up, everybody. This is the biggest tip for making space for your players to thrive, okay? This is the best shit you've got, all right? Seed connections. You can always do this, and you're a lazy fucker if you ever say you can't. Look at every character. Look at what they care about and their backstory. Your job is to twist everything they believe in to fit your story and shock them. At least one of your players, someone they think is dead, isn't dead. At least one of your players, someone they think is alive, has died. At least one of your players, someone that they thought was on their side, no longer is. And here's the brilliant part. Each of these should be revealed at some point late in Act 1. Act 1 being the part of your story that is the players getting on their feet, getting it together, figuring out that they want to stick together and what their goals are. At some point in the developing of those long-term goals, which is the end of Act 1, you should start to reveal details about each player's connections and what they believe to be true to encourage them to realize they can learn about this world. If their backstory is a static thing that only exists in the backstory and that you never interact with and dredge up and bring into your story, you will have a less interesting experience that never encourages your characters to discover more. If your characters, one of the biggest ones, is the best one. If one of your characters says, as part of my backstory, I did X, all right? Here's what your responsibility is. You need them to later on learn new context that makes them reinterpret their own actions. It's so effective. I had a character who thought that they did a hit on a kid. They thought they did a hit on a kid because the kid was dying of an illness. And it turns out that the kid had actually been poisoned and it failed. And the mom, who was trying to hide the evidence of her affair, couldn't go through poisoning her child again and hired an assassin. And this character had to realize, holy shit, I didn't kill a kid who was going to die no matter what. I just believed a lie. That shit will hit somebody. That shit will hit something. Try to make sure you don't change something that they don't want changed. Yeah, try to have a read for what's important to them. And don't change. I would say try not to change the action. Change the context of the action. Reveal a character as another character's dad while they were almost romantic. That's funny. That's not easy. And yeah, remember, characters... My statement about the protagonist... Okay, we'll go back to that in a moment. Seed and connection is important. You can always do this. Oh, but I'm doing a dungeon crawler. You still can. Listen to your characters' backstories and what they care about. Create characters that are a foil to characters that they care about. Show them another version of someone they knew also in the dungeon. Show them the skeleton of someone wearing the same clothes they remember their father wearing. It doesn't have to be their father. Just make them think it might be. You can still pull on someone's connections and bonds in a mega dungeon. Traumatize your players' characters, not their players. Also true. Also real. Don't do anything so disturbing they're fucked up. All right. We had more questions about the protagonist. I know we're all iffy about it, but you're wrong. Do you guys know what Rogue Trader is? Rogue Trader is a Warhammer 40k tabletop role-playing game that I love. It's a little outdated because I haven't made a new edition. It's about a rogue trader. Members of the Imperium given universal authority and power to explore new domains and conquer worlds. One of your players plays as a rogue trader, and the others are their officers. The game is built to have a main character. Also, a 40k game is Dark Heresy, where one player is an interrogator for the Inquisition, who will be the main character. It's so okay to have a main character that there are games built around it. You just need to do it with consent. You need to say, this is a game where one of you is going to become king. Pathfinder Kingmaker is arguably the most highly reviewed module of all time. It is so well reviewed that it's been adapted for D&D 5e and Pathfinder 2. It's that well reviewed, and it is built around a main character. It's possibly, I would say, the most well-received module in the history of the game. And it's built around a main character who wants to become king. That's how good this can be. This is an ad for Pathfinder? No, but they kind of knocked it out of the park with Kingmaker. I'm not a module guy, but if you like modules, Kingmaker's the best it gets. Reveal the magical fruit they randomly ate was there for important reasons. Hell yeah. What questions do we have for how to have a protagonist? Because I think people are touchy about this, but I think it can create really interesting games. You love you some modules, currently running Curse of Strahd and Rime of the Frost Maiden. I've heard good things of Strahd. I'm not a module guy. They can be great. Most of my advice doesn't apply to it, but it can. I still think you should bring people's backstories into modules. It's easy to change. You just want to know more examples? Okay. I think if you are doing a pirate story, motivation is so important that you should have the protagonist's motivation be big. Sorry, the captain's motivation be big and be like, hey, the captain is the driving force. All of the rest of you are still going to be very important. I guess you should have subbed, Carly. That's rude. That's mean. I'll wait. I'll do more examples, actually, because I can. If you have a band of thieves, what if there's a leader? If you're doing a hockey game, what if there's a captain? It's fine to have a main character, but you should make it clear at the beginning one of you is going to be who wants that responsibility, and put some responsibility on their decisions. How can you put your players at ease by that you aren't making someone the favorite by making them the protagonist? Find ways to modify the story to make everybody else's motivations be a major part of that character's arcs. Put more responsibility and pain on the protagonist. Have it mean something. Have their decisions have massive consequences that the other players don't have to deal with. Give them as much reward as you give punishment. That's the way to do it. Being the protagonist is a pressure. It means your decisions are the focal point of the story. Be willing and ready and eager to hurt them, because stories are about pain. Honestly, you think your players are all protagonists because they're usually multiple plot lines? That's fine. I'm not saying you should have a protagonist. I'm saying be ready to. It can lead to an incredible story. There is no obligation to do it. Most games do not. I love it. I've realized it's my favorite way to run a game. And at the beginning, I would just tell them, hey, the story is going to focus more on this person. The story is about their actions, but it is all of our stories. Even though their body is the driving center of your actions, you are all the engine that is pushing this forwards. You are all essential. The story is all of yours, even if when this is written by the bards, it will be about this name. We will know that this name would have never been written down if not for you. You are still important, and you will be as much a part of the story as they are. You have 4 storylines, the heroic journey, then 1 for each player. That's fine. I mean, that was the answer, Carly. That was the answer. The way you reassure them is, first of all, by higher responsibility and stakes on the protagonist's decisions, and then by reminding the players that they are at the center, but all of you matter. Yeah, Himmel was the protagonist of Freeren's journey, but that doesn't mean the others didn't matter. Fuck, Rogue Trader's a good game. I gotta play Rogue Trader again. Alright, I think... does anybody have any questions here before we move on to the next part? Because I stand by this. I'm gonna run probably about half of my games with a protagonist, by the way. It was that much fun when I've been doing it lately. God, I gotta play fucking Rogue Trader. Good example? Alright, alright, alright. Okay. You recommend a separate antagonistic force connected to every NPC, even if you do the protagonist thing? I agree! Do you want to hear what I did for my game I keep ranting about? There was a character who was the adopted brother of the protagonist. So one of the villains of the game was his family. His father came back as a wraith, connected to the ink by gold. His deal he made with it was to just give it whatever it wanted and receive gold, just becoming more and more wealthy. And the deal at the end, when he succeeded, reborn himself in his daughter's body, reforming her crippled and deformed form so that he could become a servant to a later villain. Another character, his nephew came to avenge his father, who had been killed by the player a long time ago, who was an old man. And then the other 2 were sisters, so the main plot was threaded directly through them, with the main antagonist being one of their father, but connected to the same ink as the protagonist. There should be one of the major antagonists should be directly tied to the players, even if there's a protagonist. Alright. High fantasy set in prehistory, focus on the war between early Homo sapiens. That could be cool. Or low fantasy. Alright, next. This one's something all y'all new DMs fuck up constantly, okay? So this is coming, I'm coming at you, new DMs, because you fuck this up all the time. Create importance. Important things need to feel important. Stop having kings and queens that just chat with you in a regular, mundane way. Kings and queens are so important. They are the face of an entire country. They represent a million fucking lives. Their status and aura and aesthetic is required to keep the world at balance. Stop having gods talk to every player. I never let my players directly interact with a god till level 16 minimum. Until then, it's archons and angels at best. If it's a minor deity, maybe, and the plot's about it, but stop doing that thing where their god shows up and is directly like, oh, hi there. I think you're doing okay. Fuck that. You're making gods. Gods feel lame. Importance. Big. Vibes. Aura and hype moments. Also keep in mind there can be personal importance. Example, Jin Tagon. Absolutely. You walk into the tavern, you see the king approaching you. It's usually not that bad. Make your gods meaningful. When a player prays, don't have a voice go, you are on the right path. Have a rustle in the wind leave a warm feeling on the nape of their neck, drawing them towards the direction they were walking. Give aura. Give vibes and aesthetic. And knights are a big deal. Make armor important. That's expensive as shit. When you see a guy in armor, it should be like, oh, holy fuck, that guy can afford shit. Have your town guard wearing leather and hide breastplates. What if they're a tiefling warlock with their parent being their patron? Then that's not a god. That's just some demon. Make a god feel godly, mind blown. People fuck this up constantly. New DMs are fucking this up every day, man. Your players will only engage with the world on the level of importance you create. Everything needs to feel big to be meaningful. Yeah, warlock patrons aren't gods. They're just some guy. And even then, a warlock patron until they're higher level shouldn't talk to them. It should give vibes. You feel like this is more about escalating stakes. You want to wait till later with some things at early levels. But also build it into your setting. When you're thinking about how you're going to interact with the players, if gods are important, think about the way their presence will be felt in the setup without making them directly do shit. Used to drop gods in dream sequences left and right. I did too. We've all fucked up. We've all learned. You thought some were gods? What do you mean? Oh, warlock patrons? Some of them are like celestial entities or like outer gods, but even then they shouldn't talk to them. Yeah, it's not about... It's about stakes partially. How do we feel about prophetic dream sequences? I love prophecy, man. I run with prophecy and fortune telling in my games all the time. You just gotta leave that shit vague enough that you can look for opportunities later to act on it instead of it being a specific thing you railroad people towards. Or... make fate flexible. One of the best things in Pathfinder's lore building, and I'm not... Sorry, this isn't just a Pathfinder ad, but they do some shit right for creating a good sandbox. In Pathfinder, the god of prophecy died unexpectedly, and now prophecy is broken and only works sometimes. And that's meant to represent the will of player characters being able to break what is supposed to happen. I love that from a world-building perspective, because prophecy and fate still exist in Pathfinder. They just fuck up constantly, and I love that. This is my accountants. The Paizo check is cleared. They would never. I mean, a regular gremlin is right, Snoll. Unfortunately, the tiefling having their parent be their warlock patron did actually happen in Fantasy High of Dimension 20. You have a Bard NPC literally writing the prophecy right now that the players found pages of. He'll be sent back in time soon. That rules. That fucking rules. I do like that, not a critic. Twice, in fact. Kind of twice, actually, yeah. Oh. It all comes back to Brandon Lee Mulligan. It really does. You don't know what Dimension is? Dimension 20 is the best actual play show. It's really good. There's a lot of good ones. It's my favorite. In my opinion, the best. But y'all, when you're thinking of how to do the world, imagine the king and queen is important. Imagine the nobles is important. Wealthy merchants are important. The top of the gang is important. Stop being ready to have these important people meet with your level 1 PCs. They should be shitters. They should be meeting with the fucking 3 steps down through middle management to these people. Not a critic. I do think that's pretty good. No, Dimension 20 kicks ass, Snoll. It's actually a good learning experience to learn about some DMing tricks, even though it's a bit artificialized, so it's not exactly the way a game works. The later ones are on Dropout, early ones are on YouTube. Yep. All right. Any questions about creating importance? What do we think? Any questions? Or are we good here? Did we learn? Do we have an education? What's the hype? Where are we at? You'll watch it? Well, okay, that's not about importance, but yeah. I will say Brennan breaks this rule a lot, but the reason is it's a comedy show. If you're doing a comedy game, you can break this rule. Brennan is not a good place to learn this lesson because he does a comedy show. Your boy Matt Mercer is way better at this than Brennan. At level 1 to 2, the most important character they should meet is the watch captain. At least in a way that they actually talk to them, yeah? Okay, okay. Is the mask important? I have a gross cold sore. I don't want y'all to look at the scab. It's in the final stages of healing and it's gross. How much gravitas do you give to a BBEG? Okay, that's actually a great idea. There are 3 levels of big bad guy to me. All right? All right. Arc BBEG. Saga B... Actually, there's kind of like... Saga's an act. These 3 levels, all right? How much aura do I give to each of them? This guy can be a shitter. This guy, all he has to do is do something impressive statistically. If this guy can hit for a lot of damage when you first see him, that's enough aura. The villain of an arc, literally all you have to do is if they deal more damage and roll higher to hit than your players expected them to, they shit their pants. It's easy. This is easy mode. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. Every time you want the villain for an arc, have them show off and do 1 attack on their way out. And if their roll to hit and damage are higher than expected, the players are scared. That's it. That's all it takes. Saga Big Bad Evil guys. Introduce this through henchmen. Have their henchmen be one of these guys. Have one of the right-hand mans be something important. And be like, oh, holy shit. This guy, this Big Bad Evil guy, this is the hard one. The way that I lean towards is I have it revealed that a major plot action was a huge manipulation on their end. That giant movements that have been happening have been because of them. And then I let the players see this guy do something they imagine should be impossible. Regenerate their body entirely, or vanish and appear behind them. Anything like that. Yeah, I don't know. This is all session 0 stuff, but yeah, we're doing some Big Bad Evil Guy stuff. Yeah, Arc Big Bad Evil Guys realistically should be able to come back as a support NPC because that's their impact. Exactly. Their impact is they have bigger numbers than you expect. Arc is Arlong, Saga's Doflamingo, Emu is Story. That is exactly right, Carly. Exactly correct. Buggy Dofi Kaido, also correct. Well, Kaido's more of a Saga villain too, but he's just a bigger level Saga villain. But he is, it is a bigger Saga, like all of the first half of post time skip. No, I would count Kaido as a lower story. One Piece realistically is so long that it just has like, it kind of has a level in between, which is like, right? Like One Piece is so long that it just has this and that's Kaido. And then this would be Blackbeard and Emu. Caesar, Dopey, Kaido has perfect hierarchy. It really does, yeah. In its Saga, yeah. It's, Rip, Spring Ruin, God, Luna. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You're getting it, you're getting it. Encounter Big Bad Evil Guy. The guy Jengen hired to assassinate Padme? Yeah. Okay, we get it, we get it. We understand, we understand. Each of these needs a different level of introduction. Seriously, if your arc Big Bad Evil Guy rolls high to hit and deals lots of damage, your players shit their pants and they want to kill him. Don Krieg is arc level. Alright, alright. I think we got one more section, right? Oh, this is the most important one! Guys, are you ready for the most important lesson? Okay. New players fuck this up constantly. Arc Big Bad Evil Guys turn into allies is awesome. It's a great arc. Begin with a binding motivation. Motivation is the heart of stories. Your players will discover a greater motivation as you go. Don't start with the greater motivation. Don't start with you are saving the world. And don't start with some shitters in a tavern. Don't start with don't start with you don't remember unless you're ready to deliver some god level shit. Start with a binding motivation. I'm going to explain some ways that I have started campaigns. One of them, several pirate ships were coming to battle, and each player was either on their own or in a group of two, prisoners on different ships. Together, they each realized none of them wanted to be here and made it their mission to steal a boat and get the fuck out. All right? One game I started with everyone having been imprisoned by a feudal daimyo unfairly, so they were bound together to escape and get back to civilization. One of my games I started with them having been recognized as the most martially trained of a group of refugees trying to flee to get to a safe haven. One of my games I started with... That one was also refugees, huh? I've used that one twice. One of them I started with them being a family unit, being trained in the hunt that their family goes on, and just being like, yeah, this is your obligation. Is that the hooks that modules suggest? Absolutely. Unless the game's about how to save your family's taverns. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my god, that is funny, Fabrizio. Repeating plot points is a D&D staple. You're not wrong. The important part is, you want to have the initial motivation, get them moving, get them working as a unit, get them with a purpose that they are driving towards, and get them in a place to discover a greater motivation naturally and organically. Put them in a position where they have something that's going to maintain their focus till like level 3, and then give them a sense of accomplishment, and then they can discover a greater motivation afterwards. All of my best games have started with the players are together. This is what's happening. This is what you feel like you have to do. It's not railroading. A lot of people are like, I don't want to railroad. So instead, they drop their players, boom, in the middle of an open field with nothing to fucking do. That's bad DMing. That's not a story. If you just put them in the middle of nowhere with nothing to do but wander around, that shit sucks. Railroading is where you make it so that they are forced to do a particular action. Motivation is different. Put them in a position where there is a course of logical action that requires them to cooperate. That way it is their choice and they have motivation on their own because of the situation. Your job is to create a circumstance. That circumstance should create a motivating force to drive your players to act. That motivation comes from them by a situation that you've created. It's not railroading if they don't know every choice leads to the story. Also true. But I think the more elegant solution is to tailor the world so that the most optimal choice is one that has them naturally act rebelliously. Have the world stacked against them, that they are encouraged to act against the world in collaboration with each other. Besides, you don't have to be one who chooses the motivation. You can give them choices and decide together. Absolutely. But the important part is you begin the story with a motivation that binds them to act for the first 3 or so levels. Your favorite campaign setup was when sent them venturing into a sandstorm that's been raging for 1,000 years. That's a prologue where they pick up. See, I like that, but to me, unless you did a session 0 or established, that's not a motivation. That's an entry scene. Motivation is essential. Start them on a railroad carriage being robbed. They must work together to escape. Oh, I did start a game like that. I started a game where my players were on a train heading into a gold rush and it was being robbed. And then they all rolled so high and my act big bad evil guy rolled so low that the game ended, that combat ended with my act 1 big bad evil guy, or arc 1 big bad evil guy, getting his belt caught on the window of the train trying to escape and having to cut his belt loose so his pants fell off as he rolled away for safety. It didn't go well. The rolls were not in the favor of dramatic storytelling. Angle Simp, you're allowed to be late. It's okay. Your plan with upcoming session 1 is to let them wander and explore a city, then the event. I would advise against it. The best result, I would set the scene. Here's what I would do. I wouldn't let them wander at all. No. You want to make it so that their first times taking actions are within the context of motivation. What I would do is start by describing the city, move into asking each of them what they've been doing in the city for the day that brings them to X, and have X be the place they all end up naturally when the event happens. That way you get them to talk about their way through the city, but they tell it like a story. And then you can just have them sit in that place for only a few minutes of gameplay. Then the event happens, and in some of the first moments where they are in active first-person control, they have a reason to act together. I like it largely, but it's about how you schedule it, right? So yeah, start with this, describing the city, then go into stories of what were you doing through the day, then go into how did you arrive at X location, then have them sit for a bit, then boom. Feel like you shouldn't start with outing them in a position where there's no obvious way forward. Exactly. If you leave them to wander, that's not going to work. But if you ask them, what did you do in the day? Why did it bring you here? That's not wandering necessarily, because it gives them a direction and they just happen to end up at this place. Wandering is never the state you want to start them in, basically. Could a motivation be someone chasing them? Absolutely, dude! Early motivations are about binding the players together to act as a unit. The start of a game being, you're in a hunter's lodge. You found this in the woods. Each of you were just out here camping in a popular spot to catch fish and look for truffles. I don't know what brought you here, but now you heard it. You heard screams that rattled the bark off trees. Your bones shaking against their tendons. The cage of your ribs thrumming with its breath. You haven't seen it, but you've seen what it can do. And you're hoping that this lodge can protect you. You start there, there's a motivation. They wake up the next day and it's go. Yeah, wandering is a bad state to start in, but I think getting a setting for the city before you destroy it is necessary. So in the game you're running, give them a chance to wander in storytelling. Automod got you. Well, I don't have that open because I have multi-stream open, so I can't see it. The one time you tried to run a game, you started it with them stuck in the desert, finally catching sight of a city. I like that. Gives a motivation. I would prefer something that carries a bit further. I think the best binding motivations are, like I said, 3 levels of progress. They give you 3 chances to level up in a D20 system to get to a place that you understand and have found a greater motivation. But you can do less if you're managing to write a good hook for what comes after. It just puts more onus on you to write a really good hook for the greater motivation, because the longer your players have with their binding motivation, keeping them cooperating, the more reasonable it feels story-wise for them to stick together after. You're planning on making a game in a Star Wars overhaul of D&D 5e? You missed the part where I shit on people who did that. There's like 18 really good Star Wars TTRPGs. Go watch the beginning of the stream where I talk about stop turning 5e into what you want to do. I don't want to repeat myself. Just go rewatch it. There's like a mountain of really good Star Wars RPGs. There's also like a really funny space heist game based off of a Star Wars knockoff. Give you a recommendation? I've never played them. I just know they're good. Guys, what's the best Star Wars TTRPG? What's the best one? You were 14 and hadn't played before? Let me be fair. My first games I ran at 15 were shittier than what you described, so don't worry. I don't hate it. I like it. Yours was better than what I did back then. At least I didn't yell at him. Yeah, but not a critic. You fought me for a long time. I'm also running low on it. D&D with 98 modules. God help me. God help my soul. I yell at him for other things is so real. Yeah. All right, guys. We have our lessons. Let's go over them all, and then we can talk about if anybody has any questions. It'll be all over my face. Noel, I yelled at you a lot today. You were mostly really correct today, though. I was really unfair to you briefly, and I apologize sincerely. You got one apology point today because I was mean. You didn't go anywhere. You had no idea how to run the game. None of your players had played before. Neither had you. That's funny. You did your best. You live and learn. You have 5 now. What do you get? We'll see. You should probably get 6. Oh, weird. Weird. Okay. All right. All right, now we're going to shrink this so that we can actually see it all. You said you should get something at 5 when you reach 3. Did I? That doesn't sound like me. You know what? You know what, Snoll? I'm going to give it to you. You just get to have one time where you remind me that you have 5, and when you use this, I will stop what I'm doing to say, you know what? If it's a time that I'm being mean to you, or disagreeing with you, you get to say I have 5 apology points and spend them to get me to agree with you. Remember, kids, if people aren't having fun, it's valid to start over. Absolutely. Please read previous message. Don't want to spam, but you think it's an important rule. Let me scroll up. Did you get auto-modded? I don't see a previous message that isn't just wait. Or didn't yell at you, not a critic. Did you get auto-modded? I don't see anything. How did you have? Well, you're supposed to track your own apology points. I can't do that for you. It might have gotten auto-modded. I don't see another post from you. All right, guys. Here was our lessons we did today. This is what you need to do at the start. Before you run a game, this is what to consider. That one doesn't count. It can't be about my actions. It's about a statement. You can't do that. You can't pull that. Define genre expectations. Choose a system. 90% of you should use canned settings. Blossoming versus telescoping. Defining your style. Creating space for players to thrive. Create importance. Begin with a binding motivation. These are the rules for session 0. Pre-gaming, how to prepare for running a session. Where did I have the Drawk piece? There is no such thing. I'm sorry. Oh. There's no mods, though. All right, let me go look. I can mod. All right, this is the thing. This is not a session 0 thing. You have one more important rule most people don't think about. Always discuss what everybody's comfortable with. Actually, this is a good session 0 convo. You're right. If your story includes, bad things, make sure to know what level of description's okay. That's a very good thing. You should do a comfort conversation. But that's more about the rules of your conversation. I'm talking about DM game prep. But you are correct. Can I use a running example for this one? Which one? For which one? Oh, to go through this? Like what I did? Okay. My PF2 game I keep bringing up, I decided to do a Victorian horror Eldritch Horror crossover game. That was the genre. I knew that would require madness, the ability to take things from people, but for there to be heroic combat because that's what the mix was. Pathfinder 2 worked for me because the horror we were going into was more of an esoteric level rather than about personal loss. And I asked the players, they were okay with me fucking with their bodies in kind of body horror ways as we went. I did use a canned setting, Galarian. In Galarian, I chose the country that is based, I forget what it's fucking called, man. It's been too long. It's the Victorian horror country. We did a blossoming world building technique where they added a city to their province of whatever the country's called. Why can't I remember this at all? Holy shit. They built their city. We talked about it. We expanded outwards to change the politics of the province. We created lore for their city. And then I created an esoteric lore of the ink to go with it, to be the witch patron. Defining my style, I lean towards slightly more roleplay than combat with a heavy combat focus, decent amount of improvisation, and we decided we'd hand wave a lot of cash earnings and focus on money being a stipend for their service to the town. Create space for your players to thrive. The way that I did this was by establishing one of the characters was the protagonist because she was the heir and that everyone was in support and also important. And then I made sure that the antagonistic forces had representation for connection to each of the other players. I also created NPCs with meaningful relationships to other players and made most NPCs have a worse relationship with her so that other people's connections were necessary for moving the plot. Creating importance. The royalty was untouchable. The princedom wouldn't be discussed with. Even the local count was so above them, we didn't interact with them at first. They had status. The players were a team of nobility that the town basically worshipped. But the church was still somewhat higher in some ways. And we began with the binding motivation. Their mother has died and come back as some kind of undead and must hide in secret. Now, someone needs to commit hunts to keep the town's monster problem dealt with, and that is the responsibility of the noble family of this town, of Vazri. So, the players, this woman who thought she wouldn't have to inherit because her siblings have all died in a disaster, must learn to fight and become a hunter. So the hunt begins, and they must go out and slay monsters. You wasted a lot of points uselessly. That's your style. So that's how I did this to run my favorite game I've ever run. The game didn't finish. Made it to like the end of Act 2, but personal life stuff. But it was great. It was so beautiful. I'll probably come back to it at some point too. Okay. What do we think of all that? Do we have questions now that we've gone through an example? I'm curious. Oop. Does the D and DM mean Drawk? Great question. It stands for Dumbum. Dumbum. Oh! Sorry for being hostile today. What's my opinion about Act 4s? I think your story should be split into as many acts as you need. They don't even need to be formal. You should just think of them that way. I should add non-drawing related channel point rewards for like things that appear on screen, but then I'd have to get things to appear. That sounds hard to do. Reminds you of when you use delete your art? Alright, so here's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing that nobody has any questions, huh? I think we're good. Sorry for being hostile. I want y'all to have a good experience, and I think genuinely a lot of when people reject advice, it isn't actually because they're right. It's because people feel ashamed admitting that anything they do is not perfect, so they feel defensive. So I get hostile with advice. No! I can change the color for the text redeem. Is that a thing I can do? You're a captive audience, you're used to it. Yeah, but I love you guys, don't worry. Oh! Okay, that was a lot of talking. You're not captive? That's true about Angle Simp. Angle Simp is free range. Good God! You agree with your advice? You're just defending world building? World building is a fun thing to do that is sometimes necessary. When it is not necessary, or it isn't the most fun part for you, You shouldn't do it. But also, a lot of people who think they should world build don't know that Galarian exists and will just suit your needs for almost anything. It's such a good setting. I have a drone outside your window? You damn right. It's shaped like a pigeon, like those Chinese drones. Oh, to change the text of what I'm putting on screen. That is funny, actually. That is funny. That's a funny option. It's a little bit of effort manually, but like... We could have one button to change it to Papyrus and one to change it to Comic Sans. Anyone listen to the D&D podcast, Rusted and Teching? No. But I stand by that D&D is not the right system for One Piece, god fucking damn it. About protagonist, maybe it's because Chainsaw Man was recent. How would you handle a failed protagonist? That is, I think you're absolutely right, Miguel, that it's genre dependent. If you do want a world build, go listen to fantasy novel writers describe world building. I will say, there are different things you need to world build for a game and a novel. That being said, you are right. Those are the people to listen to for the basics of it. You can adapt it for a game. What do I think about Amnesia? If a player gives you Amnesia, fuck with them immeasurably. Make their backstory horrific. Come up with a reason they have amnesia that will shock them. Make them regret it. They gave you so much power by doing that. Holy shit. What would be the right system for One Piece, Mutants, and Masterminds, in my opinion? But somebody said another one that they enjoyed a bunch. 50k to open your cages. Yeah, for real, for real. Dude, if a player gives you amnesia to work with, you gotta exploit that shit. You gotta get wild. Mama Drawk in a D&D, she's played some TTRPGs, but no. What would I use for an Avatar TTRPG? The Powered by the Apocalypse Avatar role-playing game. Dog. They made a Powered by the Apocalypse Avatar game. Somebody said Savage Lands. That's the one. Tell us a funny story from my campaign. It wasn't really a comedy. There was a lot of funny moments. I'm trying to think of... I think a lot of the best moments were about Dahlia, the protagonist, just being incredibly frustrated, having to walk through mud and get disgusting. Or the fact that Severian, the retired knight, kept getting swallowed whole by monsters. I don't know, man. Oh, there was the fact that they shot a character in the head to near death, stabilized him and interrogated him, and found out that the gangster was also a baker and hired him as a pastry chef in their house. And that's how we ended up with Plam, the baker, living in the manor. That was funny. We love Plam. If a player gives you amnesia to play with, you have to make them a bad guy in another player's backstory. You're sorry, but it's the rules. Yeah, I've made them have been savage raiders and shit. You can do a lot. Yeah, for Avatar, you just use the Powered by the Apocalypse Avatar game. I've heard it's really good. Well, I've heard it's okay. I haven't heard really good, but I've heard pretty good. Oh, boy. I play very different vibe than you. You had a PC called the Pickler fight a humanoid pickle who wanted to avenge his eaten children. I go for a more heavy story tone than a lot of people. But I like to have glib, silly moments mixed in. Like, just people acting normal in response to insane shit can be so funny. Amnesia, where you were the opposite of what you are now. It's obvious, but always effective. Yeah. What about Avatar? God damn it, irregular gremlin. I'm not falling for your bit. I'm not falling for your game. You once had a game of D&D where you played a Minotaur, Pirate, Paladin, Communist? You would. Also, isn't that just, guys, isn't that just the character from Magic? Ansrag? Isn't that just Ansrag from Magic? Magic fans know. I'm sorry, you just played Ansrag. Avatar: The Last Airbender vibe you feel should be the goal of D&D? I don't know. I think you can tell any tone of story with a lot of systems. Well, I'd stand by horror, and some other ones aren't great for D&D. But the tone of a TTRPG can be anything. You can go for serious roleplay. I cried while DMing that game, dude. One of your friends is a human-looking love child of a centaur and a minotaur. They turn a meme into a character. How do you write that? ANZRAG. The tone of D&D should what the group agrees on. That's also true. Anzrag didn't go back to his daughters. He just, you know, he'll get there. You just got to get milk first, Antonio. You just got to get milk first. He's on his way. Don't worry. I'm going to lose my fucking voice. These are my tips. Next time, what should we focus on? Should we do session 0 conversation? Wait, no, Anzrag's not the one. Who am I thinking of? Anzrag's the mole. Which one? Fuck, I forget the fucking Minotaur's name. God damn it. Never mind, Angle Simp. I don't remember. Anzrag the Quake Mole is not him. I forgot the name of the Minotaur. You're right, that's a mole. Fuck. To be fair, most of your characters are memes turned into characters. Alright. Do one for how to be a good player? I can't. I'm a bad player. I take too much table time and I'm annoying. I'm a good DM. I'm not a great player. I can't do it. Find somebody else. Find somebody good. Listen to Lou Wilson for that one. You'd a halfling bard based off of Frank Zappa for once. Another fun character. Hell yeah. Wait, one of his daughters went to Strixhaven and was traumatized by being the last of her species? That guy's got to get back to his kids. Angle Simp, do you play characters that don't agree with you politically? Like, would you play a character who is like a bastard? Because I do that. I play characters that aren't just like my shit. A Drawk community game might be nice. Maybe. I have been thinking about exploring RPGs. But also I was thinking it'd be fun to do one with other creators. I might not raid today. The energy is... The Frank Zappa one did? I don't know. I don't know. It sounds pretty close. Oh, he's a famous libertarian? I'm confused. I got him confused with somebody else. You're right. Melon Goofy? Melon Goofy could be fun. Currently playing a religious fanatic. You're agnostic? Hell yeah. Makes you wonder if it's okay players play a joke character even knowing the setting? No. In your session 0, when you're explaining the tone of the game, you should be like, this is what we're aiming for. This is what we're doing. Your characters should tie into the tone of what we're doing. And if someone's like, I'm going to play fiddlesticks, drumsticks, and you can't stop me. Sorry, I think it is actually fair. My niece are watching me on the TV. They're very excited to see me. That's cute. I think it's very fair if... I'll try to curse less. If you're saying, hey, this is the story I want to tell. It's like a serious story about war and loss. And someone's like, it's Fiddlesticks Drumsticks, the pink gnome, and he farts sparkles and says, welcome to Tuesday. I think it's fair to be like, hey, dog, there's a lot of games where that would be acceptable. I think, like, you don't have to do what I want you to do, but you have to do something that doesn't disrupt the story we're telling. And if they won't, I think that is being a bad player. Yeah, tone is like before session 0, where as you're scheduling session 0, you tell them the tone and genre. Yeah, but you've done that and they bring joke characters anyways. I'm really sorry to say this. I think it's okay. I think, Ash, this isn't too sexist to say. I think if you're gonna be the dungeon master, you kind of have to have enough balls to say no to people sometimes. Like, I think you have to have enough spine to say, hey, sorry, no. What's defining style? The way we went over style is how much you improvise versus plan, how much combat you focus on versus role play. You just don't know more people to play with. Don't be held hostage. You gotta say no to people sometimes. Otherwise, you're not gonna run the game well. Oh, I typoed. I've never been known to typo is the problem, so this is really terrifying for me. You think your next character in a campaign might be a hippie druid based off the dude from the Big Lebowski? That's hilarious. I'll give you that one. That one's really good. Ugh. Moon Boy, you can't be held hostage. You gotta be like, hey, this is what we're doing. Or, you might have to say, hey, if this isn't a tone you guys are comfortable with, what genre can we all agree on committing to? And just be willing to adjust to your party. Either you need to be willing to get them to back down or run a game that they want to play. I hold you hostage every time I stream? Yeah, but I'm not DMing you. That's, you know, or you're not my DM. It's different. But yeah, you can always be like, hey, it feels like you guys don't want to do this genre. What genre do we think we can all agree on playing a game for that feels like the vibe we're looking for? Look, I'm not dumbing any of you. I'm not creating that type of weird. I don't want that type of weird shit on my conscience, okay? There are phrases I don't say intentionally to avoid the weird, easy to happen parasocial sexual relationship that people build. There are things I refuse to do and say. I'm not a Minecraft YouTuber, exactly. In the tone of a petulant child, you're not my DM, you can't make me. Yeah, cries. Y'all need to accept. You should look for more people, because your friends aren't huge on it. You have a certain idea of what a game is, regardless of setting. Yeah, everybody's got expectations. I think trying to find new people is a good idea. Go to a game shop, make friends. Give me an example of what I wouldn't say. You're an adult. Well, I don't want to do that. My nieces are listening. Reddit looking for group is good for online games. I'm not a big online game fan, but like if you need to. I was thinking of Angrad. Oh my god, I was thinking of Angrad. Angle Simp, you're exactly correct. The Pirate Minotaur. He also was an anarchist, but he's Magic's idea of an anarchist, so he's a liberal idea of an anarchist, so he's evil. No, like my nieces, my sister sent a message and my nieces are listening on YouTube, which is cute. Discord's where you found most games you played. Look, if you guys like online games, that's fine for you. I like an in-person table. It's why I'm not a D&D YouTuber. I'll probably do some online games at some point. Because it's funny. Are we good? Magic has lore? You thought it was Oriform? Yeah, it's got lore that's really dumb, but somehow really entertaining and fun. There used to be books, and now there's a new one for some reason. Let me think. Are we good? We good here? We good? We're good. Do I take settings, plot lines from other media? I take vibes. The way I world build in general, like when I'm writing and when I'm DMing, is I take vibes that I like and I synthesize those and I ask questions about why I like them. So I wanted a gold rush and I was like, well, how do we get a gold rush in a fantasy world? And I went, what if there was an ancient kingdom that just seemingly had an infinite amount of gold? They were legendary. Everyone wanted, everybody, there's legends about this place that was conquered and then vanished. And there's been discovered gold in this wasteland recently. So what if the ancient kingdom here died and in their dying breath destroyed the land around them, and now their ancient golden relics are finally being discovered? And that's where I came to the conclusion of how to make a gold rush. No, I didn't watch Road to El Dorado. It was Western inspired. You feel like online games with randos feel transactional? I agree sometimes. Gen Z Elder, my sibling, no one could know. Maybe that's true. I mean, I'm assuming because she said my nieces are watching. But maybe it's unrelated. Let me think about this. Yeah, I think I usually chase aesthetics rather than specific plot beats. But also I'm a writer, so it's easy for me to write stories, I imagine, compared to some people. So I never really need to copy story beats. I can just copy aesthetics and find a story, because that's something I'm good at. I'm good at finding story. Alright. I might go jog for 3 hours now. You've had online friends with IRL friends? That sentence could mean like 6 different things, the way English works. When Drawk SPS? Oh, online games with IRL friends. Nonsense. I did that for COVID and it nearly broke me. I like sitting around a table, dog. All right, we Gucci fam. I figured Angle Simp. I'm not raiding today. It's not a mistake. It's on purpose. Sometimes I don't feel like sending the energy off. Sometimes I feel like it dies with me. Oh, I love you guys. Thank you for being here. Get good. Remember, your job is to negotiate the space between your player's story and your story. That's the job of a DM. Next time, we're going to talk about something else. I don't know if it's going to be combat. You think this energy is better than politics streams? I mean, there's a lot of times that I don't raid from a politics stream for the same reason, dog. Should next time be combat or like how to make your players feel cool, like focusing on player DM interactions? That's tough to say. Wait, am I not Mel? That's crazy. Play Hollow Knight, get good. How to come up with a story? I mean, I'm a writer, it's easy. Stories are about motivations. The best way, if you're good at improvising, oh yeah, you know, for the next stream, yeah, writing a story for a game is actually a really good idea for next session. Coming up with a story is a good idea. Not a critic, I realized it right before you said that, but yes, that'd be fun. This is a TTRPG stream, it could get way more toxic, yeah. Yeah, everyone can get better. I'm always getting better. Every game I've run, I've learned a little more from the one before and a little from that one. Sometimes I get overly ambitious and a game isn't as good as I want it to be, and I learn from that. Go over how you should structure arc sagas and stories. Ooh, that's not a bad idea. Yeah, I think writing a story for a game should be a good next time. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Yeah, only be afraid not to learn from them. That's all. All right, team. It could be worse. I only called you idiots or you people a normal amount. You people deserve it. Everybody, it's been lovely talking to you. Until next time, I said it in the wrong order. It's okay. They're allowed to hear swearing. It's more important they learn to be polite D&D players. Yeah, but the problem is I'm not good at being a polite player. I'm good at running a game well. They can try a little campaign when they're 5. That is